Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. This time, we're going deep into the world of the Secret Service.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah. So, we're talking about all
Mhm.
things, lie detection and interrogation and
Mhm.
high-stakes decision-making. And the best part is we're doing it through the eyes of Evy Poumpouras.
I love
I
her.
know, she is fantastic. So she did this really insightful interview on the Diary of a CEO YouTube channel, and we're going to be pulling some gems from that.
Awesome. Can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, me too. Let's unlock some secrets.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, so before we jump into the spy stuff and the really cool stories,
Right.
um, I think it's helpful to take a step back and kind of paint a picture of what the Secret Service actually does.
Absolutely.
Because most people think, oh, protecting the president, right?
Yeah, or, like men in black suits and
Right.
sunglasses.
Exactly. Very mysterious.
But it's so much more than that. It is. And the thing that people often don't realize is they have this huge role in investigations,
Oh yeah.
like especially when it comes to financial crimes.
Right.
Like they're global operations.
Wow.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and Poumpouras shared this story. It's just wild. About luring a Russian fraudster to the U.S. from the Dominican Republic.
Oh, I think I remember reading about this one. That's right, because Russia wouldn't extradite him, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So they had to come up with another way.
They had to get creative, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they basically, they appealed to his greed. Right. Because that's what he was all about.
Smart.
Yeah. They're like, come to America. There's even more money to be made here.
Yeah.
They're like, we'll fly you on a private jet.
Private jet.
Right.
Oh, wow.
I know, luxury accommodations.
Wow. That's incredible.
And he totally fell for it. It's like...
Well, it makes sense, right? Like if you understand the psychology of the person.
Right.
Yeah, you can kind of predict.
It's brilliant.
It's brilliant, yeah.
Yeah. But it also kind of speaks to, the level of sophistication. And the resourcefulness of these Secret Service operations,
Definitely.
It's not just about, standing around looking tough. They're like masterminds.
And they have to be. I mean, to get into the Secret Service is no joke.
No, absolutely not.
Poumpouras actually mentioned, I think it was only something like 1% of applicants actually even get considered.
Oh, wow.
1%. It's crazy.
That's intense.
So we're talking, thorough background checks, polygraphs, academic assessments.
Right.
Like, they really leave no stone unturned.
Yeah. They're looking for the best of the best.
Exactly. And they really prioritize trustworthiness and integrity.
Yeah. Those are the core values.
Absolutely.
So, okay. Imagine, right, you've made it through this incredibly tough selection process.
Right.
You're in the Secret Service.
You're officially an agent.
How do you go from, rookie agent to, Evy Poumpouras level?
Right. How do you get to be like a human lie detector?
Yeah. What's the secret?
What's the training like?
Right.
What are the techniques?
Yeah. What's the secret sauce?
Well, I think one of the most interesting things that she talks about is this concept of establishing baselines.
Okay.
So basically, it's all about observing someone in their sort of normal state,
Like when they're not under pressure.
Exactly. Like, how do they typically make eye contact? What are their hand gestures like? What's their posture?
Okay, so you're kind of creating a control group for each person.
Exactly. So then you can start to look for deviations.
Oh, so when things get tense.
Yeah, like during an interview, if they suddenly start acting completely different, that's a huge red flag.
That's when the alarm bells go off.
Exactly.
Oh, she had this story about an ATM fraud case.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about this one.
She's interviewing the suspect, and he shows up wearing the exact same hat that he's wearing in the surveillance photo.
Oh, no. Really?
But he's still denying.
Wow.
And what does she do?
I'm curious. Yeah.
She put the photo in the background.
Sneaky.
Yeah.
So subtle.
I know.
But so smart.
And it just it subtly increases the pressure,
Yeah.
without being in your face about it.
Totally.
It's psychological.
It's logical.
It is.
And then she also talked about certain phrases that people use can be red flags.
Oh, what? Give me an example.
Like, if somebody's constantly saying, I swear to God.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost like they're...
Overcompensating.
Yes. They're trying too hard to convince you. So even in everyday life, pay attention to that.
Yeah.
If somebody's really emphasizing their honesty.
Yeah. Makes you wonder why.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about those subtle cues.
It is. It really makes you realize how much we miss when we're not really paying attention.
Totally.
We get so focused on the words.
Right.
But the body language, the tone,
It's a whole other language. Exactly, exactly. And, building on that, Poumpouras, she really stresses that competence and warmth are so much more important than just trying to be liked.
Oh, I love that.
Right.
Yeah, it's so much less pressure than
It is. Sure.
trying to please everybody, right?
Totally.
So what does that actually look like competence and warmth? How do you put that into practice?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, competence is really about being reliable,
Okay.
following through.
Being dependable.
Exactly, like being someone people can count on.
Yeah.
And then warmth is really about showing respect, being non-judgmental,
Mm-hmm.
creating those clear boundaries.
I love that.
Yeah, it's about building that trust.
It's not just about being like, the most charming
Right.
or trying to be friends with everyone.
It's deeper than that.
It's deeper. It's about respect. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I feel like those are qualities that resonate no matter what field you're in, what your personal life looks like.
Totally. And I think about it, in your own life, like at work or even in your personal relationships. How could cultivating those things, like competence and warmth, how could it make your interactions better?
Right. Lead to better outcomes.
Exactly. It's about being someone that people actually want to work with
Yeah.
and be around, not just tolerate.
It's that magnetism,
Yes.
when you meet someone and you're like, I feel comfortable.
Exactly. And speaking of that kind of like presence and leadership, I mean, Poumpouras had a front row seat to all of that.
Oh, yeah. Working with presidents.
I mean, she worked with Clinton, Bush, and Obama.
Wow. What an experience.
I know.
So what kind of leadership insights did she get from being in that world?
Well, one thing that she really emphasizes is just how resilient they were
Okay.
in the face of constant criticism.
Oh, for sure. Especially these days, right?
Yeah,
Presidents are always under a microscope.
absolutely. But, despite their differences.
Right. Politically.
Yeah, they all kind of had this like level-headed approach
Okay.
to decision making.
So they weren't making decisions based on emotion.
No, it was very fact-based.
Logic.
Logic, yeah, very rational.
I like that.
She told this one story about President Bush that I thought was really interesting. Apparently, if your phone went off during a meeting, you were sent home.
Wow. Really?
Yeah, and it wasn't about being like harsh or anything. It was about creating this environment of respect.
Okay, so it was more about setting the tone.
Exactly. It was like, we're here, we're focused, we're present.
Undivided attention.
Yeah, and that to me is like real leadership,
Just leading by example.
Yeah, it's not just about saying the right things, it's about doing the right things.
Yeah, actions speak louder than words.
Absolutely. And it kind of makes you think, like, how can we bring that to our own lives,
Yeah, whether it's at work or at home or just in your community,
Yeah,
How can we be more mindful and present?
exactly.
Okay, so we can't talk about Poumpouras' story
Right.
without mentioning, 9/11.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a huge part of her experience.
A defining moment, for sure.
And it's interesting because she makes a very conscious choice
Hmm.
to not let it define her. Yeah.
Yeah, she acknowledges the trauma,
Right.
but she really focuses on moving forward.
Choosing her own narrative,
Yes.
which is so powerful.
It is, and it's such a contrast to another person that she mentioned in the interview, this medic,
Okay.
who, sadly never really recovered from that day.
That's heartbreaking.
Yeah, and it really makes you wonder, like, is it possible to hold on to that victimhood for too long?
Right, and I think, it's not about minimizing anybody's experience,
Of course not.
but it's about, how do you move forward in a way that is healthy and productive?
Exactly.
So it's not about denial,
No.
but it's about resilience.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because that kind of ties into another part of her story, which is how she was often underestimated.
Oh, yeah, especially as a woman.
Yeah, in a male-dominated field, right?
Yeah, and she actually tells this funny story
I
about
know what you're going to say.
this agent in Botswana.
Botswana.
Yeah, who mistook her for an intern.
Oh my gosh, I love that story.
I know. It just shows you that you can't judge a book by its cover, right?
Right, and I think a lot of times that underestimation actually became her secret weapon.
Oh, totally. I mean, she could blend in, gather information.
Fly under the radar.
Yeah. Catch people off guard.
It makes you wonder how many times she had to prove herself, though,
Oh, I'm sure countless time.
to overcome those initial biases.
For sure.
It's a good question for all of us, though, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever felt underestimated? And if so, how did you turn it into a strength?
It's something to think about for sure.
Yeah,
Because sometimes being underestimated, it can be that fuel
totally.
to push yourself even harder.
To exceed expectations.
Yeah, and sometimes flying under the radar, it can actually be the best way to get things done.
Oh, for sure. It's like they underestimate you at their own peril.
Exactly.
It's like
Yeah.
they think they have the upper hand, but little do they know, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so speaking of underestimating people at their own peril, we were talking about Poumpouras and building rapport and trust, right?
Yeah.
And she really emphasizes the power of listening.
Oh, absolutely.
She actually said something like,
Yeah.
the biggest mistake people make is they talk too much.
Oh, that's so true.
Right.
We don't listen enough.
And it's so important whether you're, interrogating a suspect or you're negotiating a business deal or even just in your personal life, right?
Yeah, it's about quieting your own ego
Mhm.
and actually trying to understand where that other person is coming from.
It's like that quote, seek first to understand, then to be understood.
Yes, exactly.
Because the more you listen, the more you learn about their motivations, their values.
Your weaknesses even.
Yeah.
You can really use that to your advantage.
Like she was saying about the Russian fraudster, like she figured out that greed was his primary driver.
Right.
And that allowed them to tailor their approach
Mm-hmm.
to convince him to come to the U.S.
Exactly. And, it's not just about like extracting information, right? It's about building that genuine connection because when people feel heard
Yeah.
and respected,
Right.
they're more likely to open up to you. They're more likely to trust you.
They let their guard down a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's key.
Mm-hmm.
And it requires being non-judgmental, right?
Oh, for sure.
Which is another big takeaway from Poumpouras' approach.
Mm-hmm.
Like she really emphasizes, everyone has their own story, their own reasons for doing what they do.
We all have our baggage.
Yeah, we all have our stuff, right?
Yeah.
And even when she was interviewing suspects, right, who had committed terrible crimes, her goal was never to judge them.
Right. It was to understand.
Yeah, it was to gather information and potentially prevent future harm.
Which is amazing. I mean, to be able to compartmentalize like that.
That's a skill, right?
It is. To
Fun.
separate your own emotions from the task at hand.
Especially in these high-stakes situations.
Yeah.
Where it makes you wonder how do you cultivate that level of composure?
Right. Like, how do you stay so calm under pressure?
Yeah.
Well, I think, one thing that Poumpouras really stresses is self-awareness
Okay.
and boundaries.
Yes.
So knowing your triggers, knowing what you can handle and can't handle.
Knowing your limit.
Yeah, and having the courage to say no when you need to.
Yeah, that's huge.
It is.
Because it's easy to get caught up,
It is, especially in that kind of work.
Especially in that kind of work.
Yeah.
She also talked about, having a core group of people.
Oh, yeah, your inner circle.
Yeah, who are supportive and positive and kind of limiting your exposure to those who bring negativity and chaos into your life.
It's about protecting your energy.
It's huge, right?
It is. It's so important.
Because, you can't always control what happens around you,
Right.
but you can control who you surround yourself with.
And how you react to things.
And how you react.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's talk about showing up, right?
Okay.
Because Poumpouras had this great advice about, how to command attention and respect, especially when you're in a professional setting
Yeah.
and you feel like you're not being heard.
Especially as a woman, I think that can be really tough
Yeah.
to be taken seriously.
To be taken seriously.
Yeah.
And she calls it paralinguistics.
Paralinguistics.
Okay. Yeah. Which sounds fancy,
It does. It does.
but it's basically the art of using your voice and body language effectively.
Okay.
So it's about, projecting your voice,
Mhm.
maintaining a confident posture,
Yeah.
making sure your tone matches your message.
It's like that saying, right? It's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes we forget about that, right?
We do. We get so caught up in like the content.
Yeah, or like, oh, I got to get my point across.
Yeah.
But we're not thinking about how we're delivering it.
Totally. And it's not about being like, aggressive or anything. It's
Right.
about being clear and assertive.
Yeah, and confident.
Yeah.
It's about owning your space.
And communicating in a way that like demands respect.
Yes.
Yeah.
And ensures that you're being heard.
That your message gets through.
Yeah, and she brought up this really fascinating idea called the contribution score.
Contribution score. I like that.
Right. It's basically like, we all have a reputation
Mm-hmm.
based on the value we bring to conversations, to meetings, to, any interaction, really.
Interesting.
Are you consistently adding insightful comments?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you just kind of, talking for the sake of talking?
Yeah. Are you the person that people lean in to hear?
Yeah. Or are you the person they're like,
Or tune out?
tune out?
Yeah.
And Poumpouras even said, sometimes she doesn't say a word in meetings
Yeah.
if she doesn't have anything valuable to add.
Wow.
And that's okay,
It's powerful.
right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes the most valuable thing you can contribute is just to listen and learn.
That's a good reminder for all of us.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not about dominating the
Well,
conversation.
no, it's about quality over quantity.
Yes. It's about being mindful and intentional.
And making sure that when you do speak, it matters.
It matters, yeah.
Yeah. And she even said, I love this. She said that she loves being in rooms where she's like the dumbest person.
What?
Yeah. Because it means she's surrounded by people she can learn from.
That is such a growth mindset.
Isn't it?
It's amazing.
It is.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of like positive interactions and how to build trust and rapport and all that. But what about difficult people?
Right. Because we all encountered those.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So how do you deal with that?
Right, like what about those who are maybe trying to undermine you or disrespect your boundaries?
Yeah.
Well, Poumpouras has a very direct approach.
Okay, I like that.
She's all about addressing issues head on, setting clear expectations, not letting things fester.
Yeah, communication is key.
Yeah, communication is key. And, she actually believes that conflict can be a positive thing
Oh, interesting.
if it's handled constructively.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's about having those tough conversations, but doing it with respect, but also with firmness.
So not shying away from it.
Not shying away.
Yeah.
It's about saying, hey, this happened, and it's not okay.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, she also recognizes that
Yeah.
sometimes you can't change people.
Right. You can't force them to change.
Right. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Exactly.
And in those cases, she says, create distance.
Protect yourself.
Protect yourself.
Yeah.
Because you can't control other people's behavior, but you can control how you respond to it.
That's powerful.
It's all about setting boundaries and recognizing that sometimes the healthiest choice is to walk away.
Absolutely.
And it's especially important, when it comes to dealing with the aftermath of trauma.
Right. Yeah, like we were talking about earlier with Poumpouras and 9/11. It's just so fascinating how, people can go through the same traumatic event, but have such different responses.
Yeah, it's like the ripple effect, right?
It is. It is.
It affects everyone differently.
And she chose to, process it, learn from it, move forward.
Become more resilient.
Yeah. But she also encountered people who, got stuck in that cycle of victimhood and couldn't let go of the pain and the anger.
And I think it makes you think about, we all have a choice in how we respond to these difficult experiences.
We do. We do.
Right?
It's not about denying the pain or minimizing it.
Yeah.
It's about acknowledging it, working through it.
Finding ways to grow from it.
And sometimes that means seeking help,
Right. Professional help.
Yeah.
And Poumpouras actually has a really interesting perspective on therapy.
Oh, yeah. What'd she say?
She believes that it should be a tool for moving forward,
Okay.
not dwelling in the past.
Interesting.
And she actually tells the story about this friend of hers who was a medic on 9/11. And she actually discouraged him from constantly reliving the trauma
Oh, wow.
in his therapy sessions.
She felt like it was actually keeping him stuck.
She felt like it was keeping him stuck
Wow.
instead of helping him heal.
It's a tough one, right? Because you need to process it.
Right, you need to process it. But at some point, you also need to look ahead.
Yeah, you need to start building those coping mechanisms.
Exactly, yeah.
It's all about finding that balance, right?
Yes.
Between acknowledging the past,
Mm-hmm.
but also actively shaping your future.
And, speaking of shaping your future, Poumpouras is a huge advocate for physical and mental fitness.
Oh, yeah. She's all about taking care of yourself.
She's very disciplined.
Yeah.
She sends photos of every meal to her trainer
Wow.
for accountability.
That's dedication.
I know.
But it really highlights that, that connection between our physical and mental well-being.
Yeah. It's not just about, looking good. It's about feeling good. It's about having the energy to tackle life's challenges.
Absolutely. And, when you prioritize your physical health, you're actually giving your mind the tools it needs to thrive as well.
It's like a holistic approach, right?
It is.
It's about investing in yourself on every level.
And speaking of investing in yourself, one of the things that really struck me about Poumpouras' story was her relationship with fear.
Oh, that's a good one, yeah.
Because as a Secret Service agent, she faced danger head on regularly.
Every time, yeah.
But she somehow developed this, healthy relationship with fear.
Yeah, she didn't let it control her.
No, it was almost like she befriended it.
Yeah.
She tells this really intense story about this undercover operation.
Oh, yeah.
Where she had to make this split-second decision about whether to shoot a suspect.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she ultimately chose not to.
Okay.
And it turned out to be the right call.
Mm-hmm.
But can you imagine the pressure in that moment?
Oh, it's unimaginable.
It is. And the fact that she was able to stay so calm.
And rational.
Yeah, it's
It
incredible.
speaks volumes about her training, her experience.
Her self-awareness.
Her self-awareness, yeah.
She knew her limits. She trusted her instincts. And she didn't let fear paralyze her.
She took action.
Yeah, and that's the key, right? Fear is a natural human emotion.
Yeah, we all feel it.
We all feel it.
But it's about not letting it dictate our actions.
Exactly.
It's about acknowledging it, assessing the situation, and making the best decision you can in that moment.
So what does this all mean for you?
Right. Like, what do we learn from Evy Poumpouras' incredible journey?
I mean, we've talked about lie detection,
We've talked about leadership.
resilience, self-care.
Yeah.
But maybe the most important takeaway is that we always have a choice
Yeah.
in how we respond to challenges.
We have the power.
We do.
And Poumpouras left us with this really powerful question.
Yeah, what was it?
She said, what is one area of your life where you could benefit from being more bulletproof?
Ooh, that's a good one to sit with.
Right.
Yeah.
What steps can you take today, right now, to cultivate that resilience, face your fears, become the best version of yourself?
That's something worth thinking about.
It is, well, it's been an incredible deep dive.
It has been. I feel inspired. I feel empowered.
Me too. And I hope you do too.
I hope so.
So thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and stay bulletproof.